want a second look.
Yeah, there's something about this one, isn't there? Familiar somehow.
We think we're stuck in a specific fragment in time, and we've been repeating that same fragment over and over again.
But the flirting's over, Sherlock. Daddy's had enough now.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, TV reviews to connections in mind. She-Hulk, Attorney at Law is the latest Phase 4 project in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and all episodes are now streaming on Disney+. It was created by Jessica Gao and stars Tatiana Maslany as Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk. When an accident infuses Jennifer Walters with her cousin Bruce Banner's blood, she gains the powers of a Hulk. And now she must navigate this new reality while also winning her way through the life's hassles of just being a woman in 21st century LA and also being a lawyer for a new superhero crimes unit. Now, this video review will contain spoilers of She-Hulk Attorney at Law, but I'll be doing those after my spoiler-free thoughts, so if you've not seen all of She-Hulk Attorney at Law yet, don't worry, my spoilers will come at the end of the review. So, with that in mind, let's get into some spoiler-free thoughts on She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Is it a worthy continuation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe property? It's just a good show in general. Is it worth that Disney Plus subscription now that prices are starting to come up again? I would say this is definitely a, like I said, with many Marvel Cinematic Universe properties, really are varying degrees of good, because it really hasn't been a truly awful MCU property yet, whether it's one of the new movies or one of the new shows. None of them are really terrible. However, they do run the gamut of whether they soar to new heights or just meet the average. And now we're seeing more and more that now that the MCU is diversifying more and more, there are shows and movies that will attract different segments of the audience and repel others. And that's certainly true of She-Hulk. And for me personally, I enjoyed the series for the most part. However, I will say it was the humor was not meant for me, I think, or it just didn't land with me. And I think that's going to heavily influence whether you enjoy this series as well. Because first and foremost, this is a comedy series. This is almost the closest Marvel has come yet to a traditional sitcom. And while there is a overarching story in these 9 episodes, the episodes really are more episodic in nature. That there are fairly self-contained stories going from probably about episode 2 or 3, almost all the way up to episode 8, where we finally get the reminder of what the overarching story is leading up to, and then of course 9 is the finale, is the conclusion of that overarching story. But really, every other episode is pretty much its own self-contained story, and that's really refreshing from a Marvel standpoint. I know we had that with WandaVision more and more, especially in the early part of the season. But when the second half of WandaVision definitely got more serialized, more MCU-ish. This one, She-Hulk, on the other hand, I feel like it was able to push off its MCU-ness more successfully than WandaVision did, because really, while it does, I will say, the finale does set up some things that will have major implications and some intriguing implications for future properties, be that new series or new movies. Really, it does feel like its own thing, and that's really refreshing from a Marvel standpoint. And we're getting to this point in the MCU where properties don't always have to exist exclusively to set up the next big thing. They could just be in their own thing. And that's really evident in the writing, because Tatiana Maslany does a great job as Jennifer Walters and She-Hulk, and she really gives the character a chance to breathe and to establish her own journey through this. And really, I think that a lot of her story is going to resonate with a lot of people, especially women. And again, while it's not exclusive to women, I don't want to ever say this is exclusive to women. It does definitely play into and acknowledge and call out the segment of the generally male portion of the population that has a problem with these kinds of stories, and it does not shy away from those, and it rightfully calls them out on them. However, I think there are certain times where that kind of thing works in the series context, and other things where it doesn't work, and that's going to be very much up to the individual watching this for a fact. I will say there are certain characters that do pop up that I think work better than others. One in particular that, again, I won't spoil or anything if you haven't seen the show yet. I'll wait for my spoiler section to talk about this in more detail. But I think the cameos work out well, and the characters, while I think some work better than others, I think there's something in here for just about everyone in the audience, and I think that's its strength as a show. What I think its weaknesses are is some of the writing and the episode. I think where I was praising the episodic nature in the forefront, I think it's sort of a detriment on the back half of the flip side of the things, because yes, the episodic things are refreshing, but the downside of episodic storytelling is there are some episodes that will not work, and I think there are some characters that I think do not work, and they kind of drag an episode down. Now, I think on a rewatch, you're going to benefit from being able to skip those episodes, and you're not going to be missing much in the overall story of things. But I think that's going to, especially when we were watching things episode to episode, week to week, then I think that definitely cramped its style a little bit. And also, I think, I will say, if you are unfamiliar with the show, this is very meta story, and I will say the character of She-Hulk has a tendency to break the fourth wall and address the audience directly. This goes extreme later on in the season, but early on, it doesn't feel like the fourth wall breakingness or the meta-ness of things really plays into anything at all. The meta-ness only comes together, makes sense in the finale, and again, no spoilers as to the finale, but there is meta-ness in the finale as throughout the rest of the show. It works way better, I feel like, in the finale than it does throughout the other 8 episodes, and that's mainly due to the fact that it's very inconsistent with its meta-ness, and the meta-ness also doesn't really add anything to the story. It's just kind of there, I feel like, just because the character of She-Hulk in the comics does it too. So I feel like that's a major weakness of this series as well. Overall, I would say, spoiler-free thoughts, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, this would probably be the lower end of the middle of the pack for me, because this is one where, yes, they're trying new different things, and the benefit of trying new different things is you haven't seen this before. The flip side of trying new different things, that sometimes it doesn't work. And for me, this one didn't really work for me. So if I was going to give She-Hulk Attorney at Law a letter grade, I would say this is a C- in my opinion. Not bad by any stretch of the imagination, and especially, it's worth it to watch it just for the finale, in my opinion, but overall, yes, your mileage is going to vary extremely with your individual tastes and how you define comedy. Like I said, so comedy, above a lot of other things, is subjective, and the comedy is either going to work outrageously well for you, or it's really not. And if it doesn't work well for you, there's not going to be a whole lot else for you to get out of this series, in my opinion. So at least as far as the season goes. If you get to a season 2, maybe things will change for that. But for right now, C- is where I'm rating She-Hulk Season 1. So those are my main spoiler-free thoughts for She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Now let's get into some spoiler thoughts as to certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go episode by episode on all these things. Like I said, some characters work, some characters don't work. Like Jennifer's support, family, they're not really of huge presence, and I was not particularly wowed at their characters. They're just kind of there. The best friends throughout the best friend, the lawyer colleagues at the law firm, they're kind of there. They have their own kind of things going on, but overall, I was not all that impressed by their storylines, just because their story, I wasn't gripped by the comedy that was going on with them, really. And aside from that, I just don't care about it. Just kind of the same kind of thing that you would see in any traditional sitcom, where if a character's, their bits aren't landing for you, they're not going to be very memorable. One person who is memorable, however, is the return of Charlie Cox as Daredevil. Yes, he is back from the Netflix series, and now that we've had, Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin from that series come into the MCU, now of course it makes sense to have Charlie Cox return. And while I will say I was very worried going into this that they were going to completely MCUify Daredevil, and in fact that sand off a lot of the hard, gritty edge that made the Daredevil that we've seen previously from the Netflix series so popular, in my opinion. They do that, but not nearly as bad as I thought they were going to be, at least from the one episode that we get from this series, and the little bit we get in the finale. He is more quippy, but I feel like the writers are seeing this, they could spin this in such a way that, the events of the Netflix series did happen, but, going forward, it's like, yeah, Daredevil's got a whole new lease on life at this point, that he's looking at life in a different direction. I feel like they could sell that, and I feel like that was keeping in line with the character that we've seen in the previous 3 seasons of Daredevil. So I feel like they could sell that. I'm curious to see how they're going to work this in with the Daredevil series coming soon. But Charlie Cox's Daredevil, very good. That episode with him was fantastic, and I love his hallway fight in that episode as well. Perfect, in my opinion. Not the best hallway fight by any means of the Daredevilness, but for what we got, it was a good reintroduction for this, because I believe it was 2018 that was season 3 of Daredevil was. So yeah, it's been a while. So welcome back, Charlie Cox, on that front. It was good to see you. And then the finale of this, like I said, there's a lot of meta-ness going on, and to go full meta, I did not expect them to go this direction where She-Hulk pauses the action scene saying, "Is this really what you want?" And then she pops out of her own show's tile, the Disney Plus menu, and goes into the production documentary tile so that she can walk through the studios. And turns out Kevin that they're talking about, the Kevin who's running the things, is not in fact Kevin Feige, but is a robot artificial intelligence known as Kevin. And she has meta discussion with him, or it, I guess it is. And again, I did not expect that to go well. It was very entertaining when we were going through it, but then I feel like that drags on a little bit too long. And ultimately, I feel like that when we finally get through it, she addresses like, oh yeah, do we really want to see these same tired tropes? These are distracting from the story. It's like, okay, you're making the point, but then we don't see the rest of the story. It's like, okay, yeah, they happened. Once we cut away from Kevin's dialogue, she cut back into the action. It's like, everything's over. It's like, okay, so you told, but you didn't show that journey. Why would you do that? I feel like that was just like trying to stick to the half-hour running time of your finale. It's like, no, show us this journey. You had this whole thing going where you say why we shouldn't be following these tropes when they're distracting from Jennifer's story. And yes, all right, let's see what you do with that. And then you cut away and we don't see any of it, or we just see the aftermath of it. It's like, no, why would you do that? It's like, to me, that did not land. Like I said, props for going this direction and being, taking meta to the extreme on that front. But we've seen this before in other properties where, we have the meta-ness of a character going out into their studio and interacting with things. We've seen it in such things as, Space Jam and Space Jam Space Jam Legacy, or whatever the sequel was called, I don't remember. And, even we've seen this with Disney, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, the movie that came out last year, or earlier in 2022. I don't remember exactly when that came out. But yes, we've had this meta-ness kind of thing before, and it can work, but when everyone else starts to do it, then you tend to get lost in the shuffle, and it's easier to see what doesn't work, in my opinion. And I feel like in this case, that's one where it didn't necessarily work. But maybe that's just me. What did you think of She-Hulk Attorney at Law? Did you love it? Did you not love it? What about my analysis? Do you agree, disagree? Did I miss something? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look for my next TV review, which will be for Season 1 of Lord of the Rings of Power, now that all episodes are out on Amazon Prime now. Also, look for my next movie review, which will be for Black Adam, which comes out the 21st of October. It was a quiet September and early October, but now things are starting to heat back up again, and I'm glad to be making videos again. And hey, I hope you enjoyed this this video, and if you liked what you see here or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially subscribe. I would very much appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for watching, but just remember, there is nothing new under the sun, and yes, you have seen it before.